make a combat encounter in a large hallway more interesting than just a frontline fighting until one side is all dead. I have a couple of side rooms, but this really is a simple area. All right. Have you considered the all-powerful kobold bench? That's where you get 2 kobolds and you get them to make tables with their bodies, and you stand on the kobolds so you can stand above the front line and fire over the front line into the enemy beyond. The kobold bench, highly portable, gets you up off the ground a few inches, maybe a foot or so. And if the 2 kobolds don't hold the table well enough, or you're a really big boy and you can't really fit on them, it's all right. You bring 4 kobolds and you make them form corners, and you bring a big piece of plywood, or the medieval equivalent of plywood, and you lay it over them, and then you stand on them. Or you get the barbarian to lift you up on their shoulders, or the barbarian to be a table. But a hallway encounter is a pretty straightforward, I can fight you, you can fight me, and that's pretty much it. You could do the enemy will fall back and retreat backwards, and there are closed doors on either side of the hallway, and the enemy takes damage, and you say oh yeah, the bugbears are getting their ass kicked, and they slowly start falling back, holding the line tight, moving back in unison. The whole battlefield is going to shift 10 feet this round. Now, with the way that they're retreating very, very slowly, not enough that it takes a withdrawal action, but they are moving the tide of battle, it essentially gives you a free disengage at any point in time with the way that they're pulling back. You can disengage for free if you want, or you can keep pushing them down the hallway. And if the players keep pushing them down the hallway, you're like, great. They move past the first set of doors. They move past the second set of doors. They're all the way at the back of the hallway, and that's when the door behind you opens up. And coming from behind you are the bugbear reinforcements that were hiding in the side room, waiting for the army, for you guys to pass the door, and now they come out and flank you from the side or flank you from the back, blah, 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 blah. So you can use positional strategy depending on the size of the hallway and the number of people. You could do the all-powerful, this was an old Roman strategy. I'm sure it's been done in many cultures across the world, but you do the sort of thing where the people are fighting, and then one of the enemies grabs a player and pulls them into the enemy lines, and another enemy switches places with them, or it creates a gap and their sides form up. Somehow you grab a player character and you bring them behind the enemy line, and now behind the enemy line there are 4 enemies, and now they're surrounding the one person there. It depends on the functions and the numbers and the blah blah blahs, but that's a fun way to do it. Yeah, but hallway combat is pretty straightforward with not a lot of variance in it. That's all I got for you. Speaking of combat, as someone who wants to run combat fast-paced, I struggle when my players try to min-max every step of the combat and don't take requests to speed up. However, when I start to play with some of the NPCs optimally, they get upset. How do I reach the golden middle with this situation? Well, if you're playing in 5th edition, you can remind the players that there are only 6 seconds available in each round in order to do things, and so they need to finish their turn in 1 minute. They can't necessarily stand around and look at each optimal move. They have to make a decision. So you can say, all right, John, it's your turn. You got about a minute to take your turn now. You're a fighter. It should be pretty easy. What are you going to do? And if John is dicking around, then you can be like, all right, John, you're going to lose. You've spent a minute on this. You need to take your turn, John. And John's like, well, I'm not done. Do I? And then, of course, as soon as you start pressuring players, they start asking questions to gain information. But it's really just a delay tactic. It's well, my turn is almost up. Wait, tell me about this question. And hoping that'll pause the clock to give them more time to figure out their shit. And so you just got to be kind of gently firm with the rules and be like, John, take your turn. Take your turn. And then, okay, Stacy, take your turn. And then when it comes your turn, you got to move the monsters pretty quickly. All right, this guy goes here, 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 here. They make these attacks, blah, 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 blah. And if you start taking too much time figuring out NPC and your players start calling you out, that's when you do you're absolutely right, players. This character took too long figuring out what to do. The battlefield was so chaotic, they lose their turn, and you voluntarily sacrifice NPC combat rounds to demonstrate that you need to take your turn really quickly. And once a couple of NPCs have lost combat rounds because you didn't think fast enough, then it becomes very easy to justify the players skipping their combat turns for taking too long in their planning of it. So if you're going to try and hasten combat, you got to set boundaries and do your best to hold to them. Be nice. We're here to have fun. We're not monsters. Tell them to hurry up their turns, and then abide by the rules and show them that enemies will also sometimes fumble because they're taking too long. And you gotta play both sides. You gotta be a neutral judge. And if the players can fuck up, then the monsters can fuck up. And it might even be reasonable to take too long for a creature or a monster to make a decision just so that you can demonstrate this fact. Not necessarily like a throwaway encounter, but make that combat feel alive. Generally, though, it's just a tone that you need to set. How do you talk to your players in combat? Are you encouraging them quickly? Are you making snappy decisions? Are you leading them with questions? Are you reminding them that their turn is limited? Are you doing it in a nice way? Are you doing it in a dickish way? It's one of these like soft skills, these social skills, these people managing skills that's very difficult. Do you have any suggestions for making the terrain or environment interesting or interactive for combat encounters? Yeah, well, terrain's a wonderful asset. You can put people on high ground with difficult to climb surfaces so that they can't be attacked directly, so it forces people to move a bunch. Cover is a wonderful thing, especially for ranged people who can like stand behind cover. 2nd edition, 5th edition both have rules for cover and concealment, or at least 2nd has concealment rules. But my tip would be to use the terrain. And I think it's pretty obvious what that means. Like, add interesting terrain features, figure out how those could benefit someone in a combat situation, and then use that. There's a river, and there's ranged units on the other side of the river, and melee units guarding the crossing. That's a good way to use terrain. Maybe there is a gulch. Same. Or maybe there's like a narrow bridge and there's one heavy fighter in the middle that is hard to hit with a lot of hit points, and they can't get past that one fighter, and it doesn't matter how many fighters the players have because here's this one scary fighter. Or maybe it's a wide open field and there's like 100 kobolds, and the kobolds can swarm around the party and attack them from all sides and overbear them and drag them down and kill them. Or a tower is a useful way to deny access. Like, what does terrain do? Terrain makes it puts people out of melee reach. It provides cover against missile fire. It restricts accesses to areas, but that just, limits melee reach essentially, or, makes missile attack difficult. Terrain can be used like mobile terrain that changes. Let's say the players are fighting underneath a dam or downriver of a dam or on a hillside that can be made to flow like mud. Those are all useful things. Tumbling rocks down a hill can be a useful thing, but that's just a different attack roll essentially at the end of the day. Weather effects can be fun. It's a dark and stormy day and the ground is muddy, so everybody moves at half space. Or you can move at full speed, but you need to make a dex check, otherwise you fall flat on your face and end your turn. Icy conditions can be the same as the muddy conditions, mechanically speaking. It can be super, super hot outside, and so you can't wear heavy armor, and at medium armor, you gain, 2 levels of encumbrance or something. An enemy up a tree with a spear, so anyone who tries to climb the tree gets, provokes an attack of opportunity. If you're climbing up something, anyone within melee range should get an attack of opportunity against you while you climb. Hands down, obviously, that should happen. Anyone above you that you're climbing up to meet should get an opportunity attack as you climb. And if you are hit while climbing, you should have to make a climbing check or some sort of check somewhere in order to maintain your climb, else you fall.